Hi everyone, this is Aki with another tax video. This is going over the 10 most costly tax mistakes, and this is going to be a set of 10 different videos going over the types of mistakes. So the first ones we're going to go over are the filing errors and why it matters, because if you make some of these mistakes, it may cost you your refund, it might be delaying processing, and even lead to a letter from our least favorite Uncle Sam. So we definitely want to avoid them. So let's go over some of the filing errors that taxpayers can commit and want to make sure you avoid them. The number one thing is not filing at all. So failure to file, the penalty is 5% of unpaid taxes up to 25%. And even if you can't pay, it's very important to file, because failure to file penalty is, like I mentioned, 5% up to 25%. So that's like 5 months and you can reach the maximum. While failure to pay penalty, so if you file but you don't pay all the tax, it's 0.5% up to 25%. So we see that that's 50 months that you have time-wise. So it's worse not to file than not to pay. So it's very important to try to avoid that. Another one is, not filing on time or requesting an extension. So extension of time, if you want to, have more time to gather your documents, have everything prepared correctly, you can file Form 4868, application for an automatic extension of time, and that extends your time till October 15 of that year. Now, however, if you request that extension, that does not mean extension of time to pay. And when you file this extension, it's very short form. At the very bottom, you have an estimate tax liability for the year. So you do have to estimate how much you think you may owe, and you can include a payment. And that's important for you to do that in case you know you're going to owe, because even if you extend your time to file, it's not extension to pay, and any interest, assessment, and penalties will be assessed on the amount. So you want to include something with that form. Now, also, if you want to extend many tax return preparation services, they do offer that form for free to file on your behalf if you're filing with them, as well as you can just do it yourself by pulling the form from the IRS and filing for an extension. So that's very important to do that. Now, waiting to the last minute, that's obvious, because sometimes then if you wait for the last minute, you really didn't have the time to gather all your documents and so on, and you're just rushing through the process, making mistakes and not taking advantage of all the deductions and credits. Another one is filing without all necessary records. So it's kind of similar thing, like if you're filing, you want to file right now, but really you don't have the 1099-B, which is like broker statement showing how much transaction you sold in stocks, and basically then what will happen, you will owe some tax, and then you have to either amend or the IRS send you a letter with corrections. So it's important to have it all ready. And one thing you can do right now, like even if you have not done it in the past, basically keep yourself organized. All you have to do is just have an envelope, a folder, a binder, label it with the tax year, and then put all the documents for that tax year in that folder or binder. And basically, when you are ready to file, you have everything ready. So you won't be trying to find all the documents in different places, and sometimes you may forget something. So this really helps me. Like I do this all the time, because otherwise it can be overwhelming during the tax season to gather everything. Another thing that you have to try to avoid is if you change your address, make sure you fill out Form 8822, change of address with the IRS. And why is it important? Any refund, if you have a check coming to you, you want to make sure it goes to your address, or stimulus payments if you had, like what happened in the past couple of years, or communication from IRS if they can't contact you. If many times when they send you a letter, you have 30 or 60 days to respond. If you are late, it might not be to your benefit to resolve whatever matter you are having with them. So it's really important to have it updated. Another thing that we should go over is amending incorrectly. So if you're not sure if you should amend, IRS has this should I file an amended return interactive assistant, and you can just click on this and go through answering the questions to kind of help guide you whether you have to amend or not. Now let's go over some basic reasons why you may want to amend your return and some of the situation when you don't really need to amend. So I have a table here that basically specifies. So when you don't need to amend, if you receive an IRS CP 2000 notice, basically it has already corrections, what you made, you owe them in interest penalties. And if you agree with that, then you just have to sign it and send them whatever you owe. If you have received IRS audit notice, or if you forgot to attach a form. So let's say you paper filed and you had W-2 with withholdings and you forgot to attach it. You don't need to amend in order to correct it. IRS has copies of most of the forms you receive, so they'll make the verification that you had that withholding on that form. If you receive an e-file rejection, at that time you will receive some kind of instructions of what you need to correct. And so you just follow the instruction to correct and resubmit. It's not like you need to amend now. The IRS prepared substitute for return for you. So in that situation, what happens is you did not file, and IRS received all these forms and documentations, and they just prepared a substitute return for you. So in that situation, you're not amending the return. If you disagree, because they will not put all the credits or the deductions that you could claim, they will just include all the income and so on. So in that situation, you would just file an original return, not an amended return. If you receive letters of penalties, or if you made a math or clerical error, in that situation, IRS, most of these errors, they correct on your behalf, and they just send you a letter with corrections. Now, there are situations when you do want to amend, or should or may want to. So if there's change in filing status, so in that situation, you should amend. If there's a change in dependence, like you didn't claim your dependent or you claimed incorrectly, so in that situation you would want to amend. If you forgot to include a form, so you received 1099 div or B, 1099B, or maybe you misplaced a W-2 and you didn't include it on your 1040, in that situation you want to amend. Take advantage of tax extenders. So sometimes Congress makes some changes and extends certain provisions mid-season, and I know it's painful why they do that, but they keep doing it. And so if they make the change in February, March, but you filed in January and you didn't take advantage of it, then you may want to refile and make the amendment to take advantage. You have to just kind of weigh the costs and benefits. A couple of years ago, they extended the PMI, which is primary mortgage and interest deduction, extended it, but they extended mid-season. So some people who filed in January, they didn't take advantage of it. So then they have to think about it. Okay, is it free for me to amend? If it is, then it makes sense. But if you have to pay for the service, then it might not really make that much of a difference. If there are any changes in deduction credits, like you realize that maybe the education credit you didn't claim, it makes sense for you to amend. And if you experience federally declared disaster, so there are special rules for taxpayers in those areas, so you may want to amend if that's the situation. So these are basically the reason why you want to amend or not amend. Another error that people make is not claiming refund within 3 years. So if you have, maybe a small job and you didn't really have filing requirement, but you had withholdings, you have 3 years to claim them. If you don't claim them, then you will lose that refund. And when we think about the number of people who don't claim refunds, we're not talking about just few in between. For example, I have some statistics here, and for 2017 tax year, there was almost 1.3 billion in unclaimed tax refunds. And any refunds not claimed, guess what? They become property of U.S. Treasury, so you will lose that. And we're not talking about small refunds either. I mean, half of these were more than $800. So that's a lot of money on the table that's left by taxpayers. And obviously, if you have to file for the past 3 years and you have to pay for the service, then may not make sense. But I'll go over some points where you can find free tax filing help that might be an option for you. Another reason why you may want to file in the past for the past 3 years is to protect your Social Security benefits, and also basically, like, you don't want someone to file with your Social Security, so you want to make sure you're filing from time to time to make sure that no one is using that Social Security. And maybe you need these records to file for loans like mortgage, car loans, and so on. And finally, another reason why you may want to is even if you owe money, because IRS can create a substitute return for you, and they may not give you credits for all the deduction and exemptions. So it's for your benefit to basically make sure you get that. And finally, this is something I already mentioned. Another error that people make, filing errors, is not taking advantage of the IRS Free File. So each year, IRS has different type of tax software that's available for taxpayers, and you have to qualify with certain AGI or an age and so on. And it lists, like, for 2021, they had 8 different tax software that was available, and some of them are really great. And, they don't sell you products and so on that you get sometimes with the paid tax preparation software. And I actually have a video on some of the free options. And if you not tech savvy and you don't feel comfortable doing yourself, there are also options in person for free tax return preparation. And this is IRS Volunteer Income Tax Assistant Program and Tax Counseling for Elderly programs. And I've actually took part both of them. I volunteer for these programs every year. And they have on-site location. And I'll put the link to this website, and you can basically locate one that's close to you. There are also tax aid site location that are run by AARP, and they're part of the TCE program. So this is really worthy, especially if you have to file 3 years of tax return for prior years. The tax software that's free, that's available, it's only for the current year. So this is a really fantastic option for some taxpayers. So especially if your situation is simple to medium to intermediate, then it might be beneficial thing to look into. I mean, you do have to qualify, but many people can qualify and they're not even aware of it. So hopefully this helps you figure it out and make sure that you're aware of some of the filing errors and try to avoid them to make sure you get all your refund and not be delayed in processing. Your tax return doesn't get delayed. So thanks so much for watching.